This is our Renaissance Art Gallery tour. Let us begin with medieval art. Medieval art was primitive and clunky. It really didn't have any scale. It wasn't anatomically correct. It only depicted Jesus and other biblical scenes, but mostly Jesus because it was all in churches. A good example is the Madonna and Child with Saints by Sano di Pietro. This has no depth, doesn't even have background. It's just awkward looking people that don't look right.
This painting is called Our Lady of Perpetual Help. Its artist is unknown. This painting has no depth and no background. As you can see here, it's all golden. And also, the human bodies were really not proportioned. And baby Jesus looks like an almost grown human, like a grown man put on a baby. And also, you can see the halos around their heads to show that they were holy. And they often did this back then when describing Mother Mary and also little baby Jesus. The Renaissance. At the beginning of the Renaissance, trade began to flourish in Venice and Genoa, making the Italian merchants wealthy, and the most prominent of them were the Medici. While Venice and Genoa excelled in trade, Florence began to excel in cloth making. The Italian merchants competed as patrons. They slowly started taking interest in making art, for it started to become popular and on demand. It started to become abundant, but it was a different kind of art than usual. And to help art flourish, wealthy families started to support artists for glory of creating art. These artists were painters, poets, statue makers, and letter writers.
The art of the Renaissance either points to the future or the past, sometimes both, and the contrast between them you can clearly see. Some examples of art that pointed to the past are such as Donatello's David, not to be confused with Michelangelo's. This is a statue done by Donatello, and it's cast out of bronze. It's a classical Roman nude which hadn't been done for a long time. It depicts triumph over another, Goliath in this case, which is usually how Roman art was depicted, as a victorious hero. Donatello also made David a youth instead of making him look like a king, because he wanted to show that he would have needed divine intervention to defeat Goliath. This statue points very much to the past because it's one of the first to use a Roman art form again, which was in the past.
The Birth of Venus by Botticelli depicts a Roman goddess, which had not been done since, well, Rome. It also exemplifies the human figure with its depiction of Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. This was commissioned by the Medici first, and they used Tuscany, and they painted on it on canvas, which had not been done yet. So it was the first time that they ever did that. This points to the past because it is of a Roman goddess, as well as showing a perfect human body.
Now I shall talk about paintings that point to the future instead of the past. First of which is the other Michelangelo, Michelangelo's David. It exemplified human form. It's the creator, Michelangelo, actually studied human anatomy to make sure he got the figure correct, down to the muscle and bone. You will notice its head is bigger in proportion to its body because it was originally meant at the top of a palace, so it would look like a normal person. And then it was just placed on the ground because that would really hard to... The upkeep was very difficult. This points to the future because it was one of the first times people researched to make sure they got it right in their art.
The School of Athens by Raphael. This picture includes scales, as you can tell by the people, endpoints, as you can tell with the arches and stuff. There is the sky beneath, so there is a background, and there's also distance to show by like the perspective. This represents philosophers, scientists, and mathematicians. So this points to the future because they did not use Jesus and Mary. They also used Roman architecture in the building itself. This picture also points to the future because the scientists and mathematicians are all conversing to develop new things.
The last bit of art we shall talk about is The Gates of Paradise by Lorenzo Ghiberti, I think that's pronounced. It consists of 10 panels, which are all etched in bronze, about 4 inches deep, which is kind of a marvel of the time, because he uses almost perfect scaling and perspective and distance. This points to the future because it's one of the first bits of art commissioned for this era, and also it uses it also is one of the first to use scaling, and it's even 3D. My quote from the British literature textbook talking about the past is this: drawing upon the classic models of ancient Greek and Rome, talking about plays which were now tragedies, hero encounters disaster, or comedies where a humorous situation leads to a happy resolution, instead of morality stories. My quote depicting the future is, they also started writing plays that were both tragedies and comedies, and these were known as romances.
Now we shall talk about how the Renaissance helped exploration. The effects of the Renaissance really made an impact on exploration. Due to art, people made amazing ships that perfected aerodynamics, up-to-date maps, and they also invented the astrolabe. This was all possible because the art that they used in the Renaissance was made better through actual research done on the material that they were making, and also they made math. They used math to make things proportional.
In conclusion, the Renaissance was both a time of looking backward and reaching forward. Rome's legacy was revisited and discovery itself was rediscovered. People started teaching and learning again and enjoying the arts for the sake of the arts. The Renaissance was truly an era of rebirth.